South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham indicating this week that he intends to sue the DOJ over Arctic frost. That's the investigation that included him and several other prominent Republican lawmakers.
Now, you may remember that investigation apparently pulled phone records from nearly a dozen Republicans on the Hill as part of former special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into the January 6th Capitol riot. Take a listen to what Graham said on Sean Hannity's show.
I think this was worse than Watergate, an effort to destroy President Trump, charge him with crimes that are just ridiculous, and come after people like me. I'm not going to put up with this crap anymore. I'm going to sue. I'm going to sue the hell out of these people.
How much are you going to sue them for?
Tens of millions of dollars. I'm going to sue. If you don't sue, they'll keep doing it. Don't run away from this, Republicans. Fight back.
That promise from Graham came just hours before the House unanimously moved to repeal a provision in the recent government spending bill that would allow senators to sue the DOJ for $500,000 if their phone records are seized without their knowledge in the future.
Now, according to CNN, several of the senators whose phone records were seized in Arctic frost spoke out against it, with Missouri Senator Josh Hawley calling it, quote, a bad idea. And continuing, quote, I'm all for accountability, don't get me wrong, but I think taking taxpayer money is not the way to do it. The way to do it is tough oversight.
In addition to pushback from his Senate colleagues, Graham's outrage didn't seem to sit well with some conservatives outside of Congress who saw it as actually hypocritical. Former Michigan Representative Justin Amash, writing on X, Lindsey Graham has repeatedly defended, promoted, and voted for the unlawful warrantless surveillance of millions of Americans via the Patriot Act, FISA 702, and other unconstitutional programs.
And Brian Tyler Cohen also jumped on the Graham-bashing bandwagon, writing in his own post, Lindsey Graham has decided that he's entitled to tens of millions of your taxpayer dollars because he's decided he's in a special class of Americans who cannot be investigated for wrongdoing. So you think it's a good message, probably wrong messenger, or
the other Lindsey G in my life,
the other
Lindsey
LG.
Graham. I cannot echo Justin Amash's comments any more than they were on screen. I totally agree with them. Lindsey Graham has voted for, has supported, is one of the architects of the mass surveillance of the American people. So now him and his other colleagues who've been ensnared in it, they deserve this over and over again. I think it's appalling what happened in this investigation, that members of the elected members of our government were spied on by the deep state, by the bureaucrats. I think that's so wrong. They voted for it. Get rid of FISA. Get rid of the Patriot Act. Get rid of all these surveillance measures. And you're going to say the apparatus you assembled to spy on us, it spied on you, and you think because of that you're entitled to damages that the American people will pay for? That is contemptible. I agree with Josh Hawley. I don't usually. He's exactly right. There should be accountability for this program, accountability on the senators who supported it, including Lindsey Graham. They should vote to undo it. They should not make the American people pay the damages for the surveillance that they voted for. That's absurd. That's offensive. It's ludicrous. So I'm glad that provision does not belong in any legislation. Undo these programs. These programs should go away. People like Justin Amash and Rand Paul and Thomas Massie have been warning about them, how bad they are for freedom, for liberty. For years we've been warning. Now Lindsey Graham's noticed that because he got ensnared in it.
Well, I think after January 6th, 2021,
excuse me.
Bless you, there were a lot of different...
I'm getting myself worked up.
I know, you are riled up. I think, there's a whole other side of the argument. So Jack Smith's office says that, this was part of a routine, quite legal, activity that these people were alleged to be trying to conduct efforts that were trying to overturn the
government
election.
Always says it's routine.
I know, but if we were looking at how impactful, so January 6th will go on in our history books as one of those days that forever changed the way that we look at handing over elections and how that is dealt with. It will always enhance security at our Capitol. People were affected. People died. It was an extreme event. And I think it requires extreme looking into after to see what went wrong, how to avoid it ever happening again. So
disagree on that.
We can, but I think that it's important to have that never happen again. You would agree on that, right? And so I think we need to make sure that there's accountability for potential wrongdoing. We need to make sure that there is accountability for potential wrongdoing. So if the investigation was aimed at uncovering whether laws were broken in some bigger and alleged scheme to disrupt the peaceful transition of power. And so that was what actually the investigation was about. And so they didn't continue to follow through with it under Trump's presidency, but there was warranted reason to want to look further into that and see who all was connected to it.
It was an investigation.
And just because you're
speech.
offended, just because you are offended doesn't mean that the government shouldn't do its job to make sure and deter future actors from doing anything similar.
It was an investigation into speech.
If there was any incited riots or communication that would make this a targeted intentional attack.
But it was not inside. You don't need an investigation to show what Trump said is on tape. You can watch it for yourselves, and you can decide to what extent you think he is morally complicit in what happened, and you can vote or not vote for him on this basis. The accountability is the democratic process. It's not the deep state deciding who goes to jail for speech or who you're allowed to vote for. The American people got to decide whether that. And actually, first, the Senate decided. The House impeached, and the Senate voted, and they voted to acquit him. We're a nation of laws. He got due process. They voted to acquit. You may not like that outcome. Sometimes a person who you think is guilty gets off with a crime, but he was acquitted. And then there was an additional measure of accountability, which is that he ran for president again, and he won. The American people voted for him. The American people got to decide what moral weight they assigned to him, whether they thought that was disqualifying to be president. The American people, a majority of the American people, not just a majority of the Electoral College, but a majority of the American people said, knowing that, we still choose Donald Trump instead of Kamala Harris. So what can be done?
Yeah,
At what point then do the G-men get to
said,
say, excuse me, American people, we're saying this was criminal?
You're talking about what President Trump said specifically in relation to the day January 6th, but the investigation was much deeper than that. So you're trying to just make it simple in one line, but it really was looking into the alleged illegal conduct of efforts for submitting fraudulent electoral certificates as well. That was an entire thing that we looked into as well after the 2020 election. And so make sure that there was no fraudulence happening in these states. That
They
would
were
require
looking at the
intense
draft
communication.
tweets he had on the day of
There's
during the riot.
There's a lot
they were
within this
looking
investigation, and since it wasn't followed
I object
through,
to that part of it.
You can't just say that it was two things, that they were just looking at Trump's speech and looking at and wasting taxpayer dollars. That's not all that it was
I object
doing.
in the strongest possible terms to law enforcement trying to read the president's draft tweets that he was sending during the day of the riot.
Even
that
if
wasn't
some of
about
them make him complicit in trying to overturn an election, you object
keep saying
to that.
trying to overturn the election. What he did is express a view that he thought he had won and that votes were not being counted properly. He was incorrect about that, but expressing
Did he really
incorrect
believe
view
that the
is
votes
not
are
a
being
crime.
counted improperly, trying to strong arm
Yes.
people to cooperate with him? That's
He
a
clearly
believing
did.
versus trying to bully and make somebody behave in a way that's just untrue? Okay,
He
the
was
votes
being
show.
told by his advisors, Rudy Giuliani,
So then maybe
Sidney
those
Powell.
advisors' text messages should be reviewed, and then they should, since they knew somebody knew.
Fine, throw the book at them,
Fine,
sue them.
So then you would like.
I was fine with
so Jack
Dominion
Smith
should
continue
sue. They have
Jack Smith
sued.
Didn't only look at Trump. He looked at his investigation was looking at everybody. So that's the whole point.
I'm objecting to an investigation into elected officials for their speech, not attorneys who made. You can be sued for defamation if his speech was defamatory. Then sue him. If Lindsey Graham's speech was defamatory, sue them. Dominion Voting Systems has sued some of these people for claims they made on Fox News. I don't know why they get to sue Fox News. Fox News didn't make the claims. The guests on the program did. Defamation law exists. I'm fine with that. This was the government, the deep state itself, trying to say that this category of speech we think was criminal. It wasn't criminal speech.
Our government has the capacity to do it, as you pointed out, because Lindsey Graham has made it so.
Well, that's true.
And so
That is true.
So now we're moving
That
forward
is true.
underneath the merits of the law, and Jack
Yes.
Smith did nothing egregious here. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
he followed the law.
I disagree with that, but the law is itself egregious and should be rewound by Lindsey Graham and others. Up next, Sam Harris blasted Elon Musk and President Trump over their response to Charlie Kirk's death. Don't go anywhere.